All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about automating some security and compliance. We're going to look at a couple of different things and how we can make some of these things better. So as we mentioned, my name is James Massardo. I'm the lead customer architect at Chef Software. I've been at Chef for about 2 years. I'm based in Southwest Missouri. I'm a remote employee. I previously worked for a very large fintech software company doing automation, systems management, security and compliance monitoring, mostly operations and security and compliance work. A couple of hobbies most people find interesting is we build competitive robots, and I dabble in building a little bit of custom cars every now and then. All right, so let's take a look at our outline. Like, what are some of the things we want to talk about? So this session's focused on security and compliance, right? So everybody says security is a pain, but we need to understand, like, why is security a pain? Like, what are the actual things that make it painful? The second thing we'll look at is, like, how do we make this process not suck? Because it does. A lot of people have really, really broken processes. And I'm sure that even when we talk about security and compliance, people use the phrase shift left. So what does that actually mean? You know, like, people throw a lot of buzzword terms around. So let's dig into that a little bit. And then the fourth thing that we're going to look at today is a couple of key places where we can integrate some of our security best practices and our security practices into our standard operational and development practices to make this a more pleasant experience, right? So, like, everybody's probably been through this scenario, right? We start a new project and we have a deadline. So, like in my example, we start in January, we have a deadline of June to deliver this thing. So we start building, we get our base level built, we do some QA testing, we do our staging deployments, we get everything ready to go to production, and then we end up having to do a security review. And then when security gets involved, they find all kinds of things that are wrong, and our project gets delayed. You know, maybe 6 months, maybe 3 months, we may never get to deploy it. I've worked on several projects where we worked for months and months and months to build something, and then security looked at it and we couldn't deploy it at all because of some things. So, you know, we need to understand what happened here. Like, what does this happen? Because everybody's seen this, right? So, like, the simple reason is, you know, everybody knows that security is important, right? It gets left to the very end because of security processes, and those things tend to fall into two primary buckets, right? We have manual processes and we have lack of integration, meaning humans are involved in all of these things and we have to shuffle the things back and forth. So let's take a look at some of these. So we have say we have this scenario, right, where a developer has to submit a ticket to another team to perform a security review once they make a change. Security engineer runs a scan, they collect the data, they export it, you get this 600-page PDF, and they send it back to the developer. The developer has to kind of understand, like, what they're actually asking. They've got to dig those little tidbits of information out of those massive PDFs or massive spreadsheets. Then they've got to try to fix what they think they're being asked to fix, and then they start the process all over again. So even if this process takes a day per change, it could still take weeks and weeks and weeks to even resolve, like, a minor issue. So we have this outcome where we have this extremely slow cycle time for the developer, right? So that's definitely painful on that side. But that's not the only place where we see pain, right? You know, that's focused on the developer. On the security side of it, for the security teams, right, they have a ton of wasted effort, right? And when I say wasted effort, they have knowledgeable, intelligent, talented security engineers that are doing mundane, menial paperwork. They're generating these massive spreadsheets and they're trying to, like, tease out these, like, random details out of some tool, when instead of them doing their actual job as a security engineer and investigating emerging threats, developing new strategies to better protect the company assets, all the things that they got into security to do, they're not getting to do that because they're doing this thing that should be an automated process. So when we look at this, right, there's these different things that we've kind of called out here. The developer not being able to run their own scans or not being able to automate the scans, the data not being in a place where we can query it and integrate that data into other processes. All these things lead us to this conclusion that, like, it's not the security people's fault, right? We have just crap processes. So, right. So how do we make this not suck, right? The simple is we change it. And like, everybody looks at me weird when I say this, right? We just change it. And no, really, we change the process. That's what we have to do. There's 3 ways you can solve a problem. You can solve it with people, you can solve it with process, and you can solve it with technology. In the terms of automating security and compliance, we really have a little bit of all 3, right? We want to put the people doing work that people are really, really good at, and we want to put good processes in place, and we want to have automated technology that does the work that it's really, really good at. So a couple of these things. One is the obvious thing, right? We need to bring the security folks in earlier in the process. There should never be a case where we build a bunch of things and then wait till the end and have security review it to see if it works or not. They should be integrated into every facet of that development cycle. Having said that, this doesn't mean that we bow to security's every whim, right? Security, like, they want to make things as secure as possible. And we have to find this balancing act between making things secure enough while still maintaining enough usability for whatever thing we're building to be usable for people. So what we're going to do is a very DevOps thing, right? We're going to work together. We're going to share tools. We're going to speak a common language. We're going to share responsibilities. So part of those responsibilities include developing those codified standards, right? We want to standardize all of those things so we can reuse those pieces. A lot of security folks will say that they're not programmers, and it's true, right? They may not have went to school for programming. They may not have got into it. But in today's world of automated IT, basically everyone's a coder. It doesn't matter what facet of IT you're in. Even in the modern IT world, even people in accounting and finance are writing code. They're creating macros. They're creating things to automate how they manipulate and how they analyze data. So pretty much everybody writes code at some point. This doesn't mean that the security folks have to write low-level assembler code, but what it means is have a simple, effective, standardized way to codify their standards and requirements. When we codify that and we generate that into a reusable artifact that other people can consume, now it becomes much easier for other people to take that piece and integrate it into their additional processes. So the last bullet on here is one that I definitely want to call out. When we look at this, we want to implement automated human-free pipelines. And when I say human-free, that doesn't mean we hand over all the things to, AI and let it take care of everything. The concept is really about allowing the computers to do the things that they're really good at, those repetitive tasks, those consistency things, right? Humans are still involved. We define the standards, the processes, code review, functionality testing. We still need approvals. We still have to talk with the business, right? Because we need to make sure that everything that we do benefits the business, right? Because we want to make money. If we don't make money, we don't get paid. And that's the main reason why we all work. We may enjoy it, but we still enjoy that compensation. Then we also, that piece brings the humans into the problem solving and the decision making things that we're better suited for. In this same series, the previous session was delivered by my colleague Galen Emery, and it's all about human-free pipelines and how to look at it from an automated delivery perspective. So if you haven't watched that session, I would definitely recommend you go back and look at it. So now that we start taking these codified standards, this top layer here, right, where we did a whole bunch of stuff and then we did a security review and then cross our fingers and hope it passes. Now we take that and we do the DevOps mantra of shifting left. And what we really mean by that is we change all our processes so our cycles start to look the same, right? Our development environment follows the same standards that our QA does, that our QA follows the same standards as staging and as production. Then they become to look exactly alike, right? They're just another environment. So when we take this security test, the security review, like we've got here on the top in the red stop sign, we take that and we put that down where we do automated security checks at each one. Now we find we can find issues before they ever make it to prod. So if we, like, when we do this, if we have a change that fails in dev, right, the developer can remediate the issue, run a new build, normally within a few minutes. In the old pattern, that defect may have made it all the way till like the night before we were going to release to production before somebody found it. And then it becomes a fire drill where, multiple people and many person hours, get expended to resolve it and untangle it. Not to mention the cost. Like if you read some of the DevOps ROI studies, basically every one of these stages is an order of magnitude increase in cost. So a change that could cost you like 5 minutes and $10 to fix in dev could be a multiple $100,000 thing or $1 million thing in production that could take hundreds of person hours to actually resolve. All right, so now that we've kind of identified our problem and we've identified that we have some process things that we want to change, we have some technology things that we want to change, let's take a look at a couple of specific examples for where these pieces actually go, right? Everything we've talked about has all been theory. We're not going to get into code here, but we're going to look at some individual processes and where those things actually go. So there's a few here listed. So let's go ahead and look on local dev. Most folks are familiar with doing some semblance of local dev, whether you're writing a Rails application or a chef cookbook or an ARM template, something. There's some local development work that's happening. There's linting and syntax where we're checking the code, like did we miss a comma, did we miss something like that, to unit tests where we may be running like does this function produce the desired output, and functional testing where we're actually going to provision an ephemeral node, run our code on it, and then validate does it actually do what we expect it to do. So when we start looking at how do we integrate security into this process, we're already doing some testing. And if we're doing functional testing, then that's the great place. So that's the best place to include the security baselines, because we're already running checks. If we're building a web server, is it listening on port 80 or is it listening on port 443? Then applying the security baselines, if we're listening on 443, do we have any vulnerable SSL or TLS cryptos that are accessible? That's a super good security check, and it's really simple to integrate it straight in. And those are the same tests that you would run in production. So, and that's kind of the theme here, right? We want to bring the testing that we do in production, we want to bring it as far left into our processes. So if we're PCI, then we have compliance standards, we have password policies, we have logging standards, we have things like that. So we want to make sure that we're testing against those as well to make sure we're not turning one of those checks red that could actually result in some cases, criminal charges. So we definitely want to integrate where we can. So in the release cycle, this is pretty similar to what a lot of people do, except we want to pull those same security tests in it, right? And most folks will probably recognize this as a very, very simple form of the software development lifecycle, or SDLC. We build some sort of artifact. We're going to do testing on it before we release it. But as part of that testing, we want to include the additional security baselines and compliance baselines as well. So to move on to the next piece, if like you've probably seen several of these things have been developer related. Let's take a look at an example that's operations related. In this case, like we need to build a custom image for our VMs in Azure. So we would use a tool to generate those images, and within that we might be using something like Packer or something along those lines. And we basically we're building the image, right? Because we want to bake certain things in that we want applied across the board. Most people bake in their security hardening, and then they assume that if the build completes, that it did everything it was supposed to do. It's pretty common to read in the news and see yet another company that's suffered a security breach because of a patch or security misconfiguration or something like that. So in today's world, like the fact that our Packer build succeeded is not good enough for us to prove that like this VM or these VMs that are built from this image will be properly secured. So this is another spot where we would bring those same security baselines and those same compliance baselines and put them into our image build and run checks against it. Is the image created correctly? Does it have everything that it needs? If it does, we give it the thumbs up. We go ahead and seal the build and we upload it to Azure for consumption. If it doesn't, we fail the build and we fail out completely. We look at the results, we go back to our code, we make a code change to turn that test green, and we ship it through. So we can take this exact same pattern, right, and we can apply it to cloud provisioning as well. And if you're wondering, like you probably look, the last three slides look almost identical, and it's that way on purpose. As we begin to codify our enterprise, as we begin to automate all these things, what we're doing is we're building a basic form, and that form is since it's all code, it's SDLC. So we want to follow that standardized SDLC process. The more standardization that we get across more processes, the more prepared we are to ship change on demand. When I say ship a change on demand, that doesn't mean that you have to ship 5,000 changes a day like Amazon or Facebook or something like that. What we really want to get to is we want to be capable of shipping a change when the business needs something, not 3 months or 6 months or 12 months later. As businesses begin to move faster and as the competition is growing, like as we've seen, over the last several years, the first company to get the feature out to their customers is the one that generally wins. So we want to empower the business to be able to ship changes when they need them. So, in the case of cloud provisioning, there are numerous tools to handle that, just like with the OS image. We want to validate that provisioning was created successfully. So take a Terraform or an ARM template. We want to be able to, we don't want to rely on an exit code 0 to say, yes, everything's good. We want to check all of our things. So that kind of leads us out to production, right? So we've looked at local, we've looked at testing, we've looked at some of our provisioning, our OS imaging, some of these core things. We get out to production. Now, as we've integrated these things, production is no longer considered a place where one has to tread lightly. There are no pets in production anymore. We've got security, we've got automation. These things are all integrated into our processes and not shoehorned in at the very end. So now, like I said earlier, production it's just another environment. So if we can ship change on demand and we can ship it through all of our environments, now as we see something, if a defect does make it out, we can just ship a replacement for that and get it out quickly and not have like the catastrophic failures of, whoops, somebody changed the setting on this server and now that server is rejecting requests where all the other 50 servers in the cluster are accepting them, and it's causing intermittent failures or things like that. So kind of to recap here, the security folks are our friends, right? They have a really important job to do. They're not purposely trying to slow things down, right? They want to keep us secure. They want to keep our customers secure. They want to take care of us. So we want to extend the same partnership that we've done with development and operations in the DevOps model. We want to include the security folks in that as well, and we do that by doing a very DevOps thing. We go talk to them. We educate them. We include them. We ask them for their input. We make them a valuable member of the team, and we make everything better in the process. We want to run the same security baselines and the same compliance baselines in local dev that we would run in production. That way we make sure a defect is found as early in the process as we possibly can. And last but not least, we want to automate any repetitive task. If you do a task that you even remotely think you will do more than once, it's worth the time and effort to automate that task. Cool. So that's it on the slides. What questions can I answer? I think y'all can throw them in chat. If you do have a question that comes up later, you can reach me at jmassardo@chef.io, on Twitter at jamesmassardo. I have GitHub. I have code examples for a lot of these things to show actually how to do it in real life at GitHub at jmassardo.
Yeah, thank you, James. Looks like we have an incoming question, just to see what it's about. We still have 2 minutes left from this call. The question is, does Chef offer compliance solutions for desktop?
Yeah, definitely. So we can provide compliance solutions for desktop, for servers. We have a couple of different ways that we can do it. We can look at it from the inspection interrogation perspective. We also have pre-built solutions that you can get that will do compliance essentially for you.
Thank you. And have you seen benefits in shift left in agile teams? If so, how did security engage with them?
So definitely. When we start shifting things left, the security folks tend to get left behind. A lot of their tools and things like that are not necessarily set up for the DevOps style processes. So like I mentioned earlier, really the only way that I've ever had success as a practitioner and as an architect at Chef to get the security folks engaged is to just go talk to them. Some of the conversations are kind of awkward up front and some of them are kind of difficult. But when you find some common ground, then it's a whole lot easier to get them to participate. And kind of that same story that I told in the first slide about the projects getting late, I tell that same story to the security folks from the security point of view. It's like, it's the exact same scenario, but it's how many times has a development team or an operations team built something without telling you, and then they get all the way to wanting to release into production before you even find out about it. And then you start trying to do a security scan and you try to start doing an audit on it. You find all these things and then everybody's mad at you because like you're delaying their project and things like that. And the security folks most of the time will be like, yes, we hate it when that happens. Okay, what if I could give you a way to fix that? And then when you get them at like on their terms, then they're far more likely to want to come over and engage with you and get involved. One of the other pieces that I've seen there is as we start codifying some of these standards and we take some of the audit responsibility and the data collection responsibility off their shoulders, they're far more interested in wanting to participate in the definition of those standards. And there are tools, Chef provided tools, or provides some tools that do this, where we can actually empower the security teams to build the compliance profiles themselves, where they own it, and then we just consume it.
Thank you, James. I think that was a very good answer. Looks like we're past 1 minute. So basically we're at time. If there are any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we will take them after the call. So James, we really thank you for the presentation. I think it was great. And we, by the way, we will post this recording on the Microsoft Partner community in case you want to share it from your end as well.
Okay.
Yep. So thank you for your time. And we will wrap up here.
All right, thank you. If anybody has any questions, like I said, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Have a great day ahead.
All right, bye-bye.